Melbourne's trams are driven by tram drivers of all kinds. They are driven by women, men, refugees, TikTokers, and Santa Claus. But what if I told you that one time, or a couple of times, that a tram in Melbourne was once driven by a 15-year-old teenager? Yes, of course, I'm not making this up.
Embarrassed officials admit a teenage tram fanatic has made a mockery of security. He crisscrossed the city, picking up passengers from South Bank to St Kilda. Police eventually stopping the stolen tram in Hawthorn.
The year was 2005, a time where Melbourne's public transport system was in private operation and where some riots were about to happen in Sydney. Melbourne's tram system was recovering from their 7 years of being operated by two private operators. They became one operator again, being operated by Yarra Trams. Something interesting happened that time. In the 10th of April, a 15-year-old was found stealing driving a C1 class tram, stopping at tram stops and picking up passengers. He was arrested as he drove the tram on Glenferrie Road in Kew. Police say he stole the tram from South Bank Depot and drove it for about 40 kilometres, going past St Kilda, Malvern, Kooyong and Kew. This was not the first time this happened on Melbourne's tram system. In 1954, a person described as a joker stole a tram from Brunswick. The tram was idle on the platform and the driver left it for a few minutes. Two men came in a mysterious car. One person got out, jumped into the tram's cab and drove the tram away. The driver noticed this and got a taxi to chase the tram. After 1.7 kilometres, the joker got out of the tram and was picked up by the same mysterious car from before. In 1986, a film was released called Malcolm, directed by Nadia Tass. It is about a mechanical genius who builds his own tram and drives it across Melbourne. Afterwards, he loses his job and gets two roommates to support his living. He notices that they are criminals and decides to help them by inventing gadgets for their devious plot. Back to 2005, during that day it was unclear what he looked like, but he was described as someone wearing a jacket similar to the Yarra Trams uniforms that drivers wear. Detective Senior Constable Hills said that the boy was somehow obsessed with trams during an interview. Take a look.
The young lad certainly indicated that he does want to be a tram driver, and look, he has an obsession with tram.
Now, you're probably thinking, is he a thief? Is he a criminal? Or is he insane? No, he is none of those things. I believe he is a person who is trying his best to contribute to society and has a special interest. He likes to engage and interact with their interests in many different ways. How do I know this? Because I'm that kind of person. I have special interests in railways and film directing. I engage and interact with my interest in trains by riding them, looking at maps, finding out how they work, and from looking at railways that are being built today. With film directing, I think about a couple of film ideas and I use editing software to put the video together and to experiment with special effects. Okay, before I talk about the tram boy, I need to give you some context to help you understand that he is not a criminal. Darius McCollum is an American person who is known for posing as a bus driver and a metro train driver in the New York City subway. Born in 1965, he became interested in railways at a young age and his parents would take him on train trips. At 5 years old, he was able to know the NYC subway map very well and was fascinated in how the system worked. He did not cope with school very well though. He struggled with his classmates and most of his schoolwork were not focused on expanding upon his special interest of railways. At 12 years old, he went to school one day with another classmate. It was just those two as there was heavy snow and no other student could come to school. Both were instructed to complete a huge puzzle. Darius was intensely focused on the puzzle, but not the other classmate. They nicked a pair of scissors from the teacher's desk and stabbed Darius on the back. Darius lay in a pool of blood, unconscious. He spent 2 weeks in the hospital and undertook 2 surgeries to repair his lungs. Afterwards, Darius did not like school and was afraid of his other classmates. So, he snuck out to the NYC subway. He eventually found a sanctuary in the Metropolitan Transit Authority rail yard. He would say that he was a family member of an employee and would volunteer to sweep trains, clean workspaces, get food, and help them with whatever they needed. His mother at times came to the rail yard herself and begged workers to send him back to school, but was unsuccessful. Darius became quite reliable, but the workers taught him how to move subway trains out of the yard. At 13 years old, he knew how to drive subway trains on certain lines. At 15 years old, he was arrested for driving a subway service. Darius never revealed to the authorities he was working for the MTA employee. His school identified Darius as a truant and he was confined to a mental hospital. He was diagnosed with severe depression and psychosis and was released after his parents found out he was being sexually abused. Afterwards, he was somehow welcomed back to the MTA rail yard and he grew so tall that he was taught how to drive a bus. He ended up driving scheduled routes and he was arrested and confined to a mental hospital once again as it was a violation of his probation. In 1989, he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome and his psychiatrist said that Darius's abilities of the NYC transit system, coupled with his lack of social skills and poor academic performance, had impaired his judgment. He recommended intense therapy, but Darius never received any treatment. If you don't know what Asperger's is, it is another way of diagnosing the autism spectrum, which is described as a lifetime developmental condition, seen as a mixture of behaviours and conditions that affect the human brain. These behaviours include problems in social interaction, verbal and non-verbal communication difficulties, intolerance to change, restricted and repetitive patterns of thought behaviour, speech and abstract concepts. It was once a diagnostic criteria until 2013, when DSM-5 was released. They incorporated all characteristics of Asperger's into autism. For the next 40 years, Darius had been driving subway trains and buses, staying within schedule and within the routes, whilst repeatedly arrested a couple of times. During his life, no injuries or damages were reported, and he has not been charged with violence. This continued until 2018 when he was wrongfully admitted to the Hudson Forensic Psychiatric Center, a mental hospital for dangerous criminals, and notorious for abuse, neglect, and danger. Patients are force-fed massive amounts of narcotics and are restrained with straitjackets. He had used an insanity defense based on his autism spectrum diagnosis, but failed miserably. He had become a cult figure and a folk hero among autistic and other neurodivergent people. He is a gentle and compassionate person who loves railways, and he definitely deserves a place in the NYC subway. A documentary film was made in 2016 called Off the Rails, reflecting on his life as a train driver and his interest in trains. Now, why have I told you all of this? Because this was probably what it was like for the tram boy. Now, with this context in mind, let's talk about the tram boy in Melbourne. Described as 15 years old in the news, he was born in 1990 and raised in the western suburb of Sunshine. He was a ward of the state and he would often run away from home and get in trouble with the police. Wanting to escape boredom, he decided to take the Route 109 tram to Port Melbourne, riding the C1 class trams. He would do which Detective Senior Constable Hills described as...
This young lad has been travelling around on the trams for some time and has been observing the drivers and observing the operating procedures.
He had watched them for some time and had a notebook writing down their procedures. As he kept doing that, he thought of an elaborate plan and he set it into motion. On March 2005, 3 weeks before the tram trip took place, the boy took a keyring of 3 pairs of keys to a C1 class tram. Why did he do this? Well, so he could have a go at driving a tram. To operate a C1 class tram, there are 3 keyholes and 3 keys need to be inserted to start up the tram. How did he take them? He was walking down the street and stumbled into Kew tram depot. He came across an office where he found a pair of keys hanging. As he was about to take them, an employee walked in, but instead of getting busted, he told the employee a tall tale on why he came inside. After a tense 7 minutes, they both walked back out into the street, and the theft was not reported. His mission was almost complete. He successfully had the keys to operate one C1 class tram. A couple of weeks later, the boy, before driving the trams, did a couple of other things. Police allege he went to a bus depot in West Footscray. He jumped the fence, broke into one of the buses, and drove a bus around the depot, somehow. As he was in the bus, he drove around the playground at his local school and did burnouts with it. Afterwards, he got out of the bus and went to a rail yard in North Melbourne, where he allegedly got into a diesel train. He attempted to start the train up, but failed, and he fled from the train, taking the train keys with him. The next day was when the boy actually drove the C1 class tram. He somehow got into Southbank Depot and got into a C1 class tram. While police described the boy as wearing a jacket similar to the official Yarra Trams uniforms, we don't know how he managed to get it. It's not like you could just get a random sweater and put a Yarra Tram stick on it and say, "Hey, I drove trams!" On that day, he managed to drive the tram for a little bit, until he rammed into another tram. A Yarra Tram spokesperson, Colin Terrace, described it as a mystery collision in the depot on the 10th of April, while police suggested the damage cost 2,000 Australian dollars. Another Yarra Tram spokesperson, referred to as Mr. Cliche, stated that driving Melbourne's trams takes 4 to 5 weeks of training, and Senior Constable Hills said it takes considerable effort, time, and concentration to drive these trams. A couple of days later, after that embarrassing moment, the tram boy was still determined to drive a tram. He snuck into Southbank Depot again and took the same C1 class tram from last time. This time, instead of causing an accident, he actually managed to drive it properly. He brought the tram onto the Port Melbourne light rail line and drove it from Southbank Depot to Beacon Cove and back, going above speeds of 80 kilometres an hour. He drove back and forth about 22 times before leaving the tram a couple tram stops away from Port Melbourne. Senior Constable Hills believed that the 15-year-old drove the tram back and forth on Friday to work out how to use the complicated braking system. We have finally reached the date. This was the moment the tram boy was waiting for. He was going to drive the tram out into the streets. At dusk, he went back to Southbank Depot again and took the same C1 class tram again. This time, he took it out of Southbank Depot and drove it out eastbound to Clarendon Street. This is when he would do one thing that he wanted for a while: pick up passengers and take them to the stops. He drove to St Kilda, Malvern, Kooyong and Kew. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take a tram. What happened is the boy went on a route. He went down a couple of tram lines. So what I'm gonna do is take the tram down that exact route that the tram boy went on. And here it comes. First, he drove from Southbank Depot and went along Clarendon Street southbound to St Kilda. Now, there isn't a tram track that curves right onto Clarendon Street, but the tram boy did another thing.
And alter the points on the track to change the direction.
6, 109.
When they came to our place, like our own house,
The next stop is Canterbury Road.
He came to Fitzroy Street, the terminus of the Route 12 tram. He drove the tram along the curved track, turning left and headed eastbound for St Kilda Junction.
It's insane. It's us.
As he came to St Kilda Junction, he went out of the tram and changed the points again, then drove the tram heading southbound along St Kilda Road. Passengers didn't really care that much and they didn't notice he was a teenager. However, there were instances when the boy overshot a tram stop platform and reversed. Some passengers pointed this out to him, and this was when things got a bit suspicious. When I took the tram to school, there were instances where the drivers overshot platforms but did not reverse back. The tram then turned left onto Carlisle Street. This is when he would follow the existing Route 16 from Malvern to Kew. After turning onto Hawthorne Road and crossing Princess Highway, the tram continued along Glenferrie Road. If something like this happened today, passengers, especially the over-the-top train enthusiasts, would record this with their smartphones or live stream this on social media. Now, let's not forget that this was 2005 and social media was not as advanced and intelligent yet. Passengers did not call the police and mobile phones were quite uncommon. As the boy was driving the tram, the theft of the tram was not reported until 2120 when Yarra Tram staff at a control room alerted police. As the boy came to Wellington Street, he was about to get busted. Police cars came and surrounded the tram. The boy stopped the tram and was held at gunpoint. Terrified, the boy got out of the cab and tried to run to the cab at the other end.
Tram driver shat himself, slammed on the brakes, ran into the back door, and he goes, "I've just stolen the tram, just stolen the tram."
Police did eventually get inside the tram and held the boy down at gunpoint. It was a terrifying situation, not just for the boy, but for the passengers. One passenger said that 8 police cars surrounded the tram, had their guns drawn, and were demanding to open the doors. When the boy was handcuffed, a female passenger protested.
She pointed at them and yelled something, but the police were pretty angry as well and sort of pushed her aside. Once things settled down, they talked to the witnesses. But first of all, it was pretty brutal. From their point of view, I'm sure they didn't know if he had a gun or whether he was trying to kill people, so I guess it was appropriate, but at the same time it seemed excessive.
Nevertheless, the boy was arrested and taken to Boroondara Police Station. The phenomenon of the tram boy has triggered speculation within the press, and there were talks that Yarra Trams did not have a good enough security system. One of the Yarra Trams' deputy chief executives, Dennis Cliche, was embarrassed over the theft, but does not have a grudge against the boy and is considering hiring him if he wants to be a tram driver.
We have a very good recruiting policy, and anybody who passes and wants to follow our recruiting policy, we'd be glad to offer a job to, provided he's old enough to hold a driver's license.
He also explained that the tram system were fitted with security systems.
There are safety systems built in that he would have had to study and know how to drive this tram without engaging the safety systems, which are designed to shut the tram down. So this is somebody who spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to go about this. When somebody takes our individual vehicles unauthorized, it's of great concern to us, and we are conducting a full investigation. Whether he's a trammie or an individual who cares for trams, it makes no difference whatsoever.
Detective Senior Constable Hills was not happy about the consequences of the theft, but said that the boy should not abandon his dream of being a tram driver. Apparently, he was detained once again and taken to Parkville Youth Justice Centre. The police eventually found out about the other stuff he did, including the bus driving, key stealing, attempted train stealing, and the other 2 times he drove the C1 class tram. A transit detective questioned that if he did this, he could have killed someone. I've concerned he would continue to commit these offences because he can't help himself. The tram boy responded with, "No, because I know how to drive and that wouldn't happen." He was refused to bail under the assumption that he might do the same thing again. A psychologist reported that the youth had a pattern of trying things and seeking new experiences without thinking of consequences. A lawyer said he was diagnosed with ADHD and an unidentified intellectual disability. He was eventually charged with 9 offences, including 2 counts of theft of trams and endangering life.
Guilty.
He was held for 7 months and was bailed to appear before the Melbourne Children's Court on 20th of June 2005. The phenomenon of the tram boy has been discussed in recent years with the latest social media programs. There were lots of theories from many internet users on Reddit and YouTube, and some have even tried to look for the tram boy themselves. A YouTuber, Fergus Neal, talks about it in one of his videos.
Remember when news was this light back in 2005 when a kid would steal a tram and they'd cut to Brent? Brent, what do you think about this crime? Well, I was on the tram and it was the best 45 minutes of my life.
2 songs were also written about him and his legacy.
One for the rain. I was just 15 and it was kind of a big deal. They called me tram boy. I went out on my own. I turned the key and I let it roll. When I rang that bell, I think I fell in love. But he's watching those tracks and he's thinking about her eyes and her hair so beautiful and curly. Now he knows those tracks lead straight to her door. Across the other side of town, maybe 50 stops or more. And he smiles while he thinks about that look on her face when he rings that bell out the front of the place, yeah.
There are also rumours suggesting that the boy was on the autism spectrum and he is working for Yarra Trams. One internet user claimed his name is Lick Lampthorne and started working for Connex, Melbourne's former commuter train operator, while another suggested he died from drug overdose in 2019. To be clear, I don't think any of these things happened, but let's just hope that he is living the best life to his fullest potential and is probably using his skills in another career. Now, we're almost at the end, but you're probably thinking, how did I know what the boy did? How do I know where he lived? How do I know his antics? Am I an AFP agent? Well, I actually found it on YouTube. That news report I showed you, there were comments posted. One person under the username OzB89 or Ash Bryant claims in the comments of the video to be the tram boy. At first I thought it was some scam bot or an internet troll saying, "Lol, I am tram boy," or "Hello, I am the tram driving boy butt knockers." But upon finding 15 plus paragraphs, I was convinced he was the true tram boy, and I don't think internet trolls would write more than 2 paragraphs. He said that when he was arrested, the detective phoned the state transport minister, who said he can still be a tram driver. He also explains his early life in detail and talks about what happened after he was arrested. He also gave everyone a good fact-checking.
The end of the line coming when power was cut and police moved in.
This was not true. Apparently the power was not cut. He was coming towards a tram stop up ahead. When police cars came for him, he sped up but realised he may skip that tram stop. So he stopped the tram quickly and tried to get to the other side of the tram. During his tram driving in Port Melbourne, he practiced emergency braking tests. He tests how long it takes to bring a tram to a complete stop and also how long it would take to reach high speeds. He confirmed he did it in safe conditions. His headlights were on and indicators were used where applied, which allowed him to override the emergency system. So the emergency systems can only shut down the tram if they are doing erratic movements. You need to take action to prevent the tram from stopping. Another thing,
The 15-year-old told police he wants to be a tram driver when he grows up.
no he didn't. He never said he wanted to be a tram driver. He did it as an exercise to prove a point to adults, like scoring points in a football game, or doing a lot of house chores to make your father proud, or Thomas the Tank Engine taking risks to prove he is useful. He also broke into a police station and stole gear, which was so sensitive that all charges were dropped, otherwise media outlets would have talked about it. During his arrest, he was informed that police thought he was a terrorist, and that was why he was arrested at gunpoint. He said that he could still work and live, but doesn't want to break the law. So So this was quite an unexpected surprise. He has also confirmed he's not working for Yarra Trams, he's not on the autism spectrum, he was given immunity by the state government, which could explain why the charges were dropped, and that practicing driving a tram is not as easy as in a video game, and it was based on real life decisions. So that's it. The story of the tram boy. It was quite a journey. There are lots of people that are proving themselves in the world striving for a good career. And just like Darius McCollum and Tramboy, there are many other people just like them that are trying their best to work in the transport industry. Thank you for watching. If there is anything I got wrong, write it in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Bye!